Good afternoon, everyone. This is Valerie Wendt with Surgent CPA Review. Thank you for joining us this afternoon as we talk about a really important topic with regard to the CPA exam, especially for the BEC section. So if that's a section that you're getting ready to test on or you have it left in your testing plan, I think the information that you'll hear this afternoon should be useful in making sure that you get the top scores on the BEC section, specifically with the written communication questions that appear in BEC. So I've titled this session Right or Right, kind of a play on words, and we'll talk about the importance of knowing the difference in what words to use, but basically the importance of good writing skills for the CPA exam. As we go through the webinar this afternoon, if you have any questions, feel free to submit those questions in the question panel of your webinar tool. We will spend some time towards the end of the webinar going through any questions that you submit. So please feel free to submit as many as you'd like. So let's get started. We're going to dive right in. So the written communication questions, as you all probably know, they are in the business environment and concept section, or BEC. They have remained in the BEC section even with the launch of the new exam that launched back on April 1st. So that's good news that they just kept those types of questions in that section. So with the new exam that launched in April, BEC is now a 4-hour exam. And the reason for that is that they have added task-based simulation questions to this particular section. Those had not appeared in this section prior to April 1st. And so with the addition of those additional types of questions, they've added time for you to complete this section. So we're not going to focus today on the task-based sims. We are going to spend our time talking about the written communication questions. So there are still 3 of them, just like there were before, and these 3 written communication questions are going to be all put in the final testlet of the BEC section. So it'll be in that 5th testlet. And out of those 3 written communication questions, just like before, there is one question that is a pretest question. In other words, you're not going to know if the answer that you submit to that question is even affecting your score whatsoever. So they actually will throw out one of the questions. With the launch of the new exam, the written communication questions count for 15% of your overall score for this section. That's the same as it did before. So that has not changed. So that's also good news. So you don't have to worry about that particular thing. So when it comes to the written communication questions, you need to remember that this is not necessarily an essay. Years ago on the CPA exam, there were questions that they considered essay questions. These are not essay questions. These are questions where you are given a scenario and you're going to be asked to read through the situation that they give to you, and then you're going to need to write an appropriate document relating to the situation. So you're going to need to understand what it is that they're asking you and what kind of document that you would need to write. So ideally, the documents will take the form of either a memo or a letter, and maybe it's a disclosure. There'll be various things that they will ask you to write with regard to this particular part of the exam. So the written communications questions on the BEC section are scored based on 3 general writing criteria. And those 3 criteria are organization, development, and expression. And we're going to talk about what each of those 3 things mean. Now, while it's advisable to talk on the topic, scoring for the written communication questions is predominantly on how well written that response is. So I'm not going to suggest that you talk off topic. I'm going to suggest that you try and stay on topic, but watch how you develop your response. You want to make sure that it is well written, because that's how you're going to get the most points in this particular portion of the exam. So the document structure. So let's talk about organization. So the document structure, the way you order your ideas, the way that you flow from one idea or another, how you link those ideas together, And so as you are formulating your response for the written communication questions, you want to make sure that you have an overview or thesis statement. You have to have that in there. It kind of sets up your response. Your paragraphs need to be unified, so there needs to be a topic sentence and supporting sentences that support that particular topic. And watch your transitions and connectives and how you connect your thoughts together as you're writing. A lot of what you're going to hear this afternoon goes back to your English classes. It may be advisable that you kind of go back in and dig out those English books. I do have some suggested reference books at the end of the session here for you to go back in if you need to brush up on your writing skills. So you need to make sure that your organization is good. Then we move on to the development. So what is development? So as you write out and formulate your response, you're developing your ideas. So you need to be able to make sure that your document has supporting evidence and information to clarify your thoughts. So those could take the form of providing some details, defining something that you say, providing examples. Maybe you just need to restate something or rephrase something so that it comes across more clearly. So that's all a part of good writing. When you move into the expression, so this is that third category, you want to make sure that your document is making good use of conventional standards of business English. So maybe you need to go back to your business English class if you had one. So what that means is look at your grammar. How do you formulate your sentences? How do you construct those? Is there a subject-verb agreement? Are there pronouns and modifiers? So all of that, as you're probably hearing that and thinking, oh my goodness, I have forgotten all of that. But what in reality, especially if you're in the business world now and you're working, you're probably already doing this if your part of your role is to do documenting, or maybe you're communicating with your clients, or maybe you're having to write a memo to your boss or some manager. I would hope that you are writing that document very clearly and using the proper grammar. Watch your punctuation. So, if you're at the end of a sentence, you need to make sure you have a period. If you're transitioning thoughts or you're listing items, you want to make sure you've got the proper use of semicolons, colons, and commas. And again, if you need to refresh your memory on that, you may want to go back to your business English class. Watch that you're using the proper word usage, that you're not using jargon, you're not defaulting to your social media, your Twitter, or your Facebook language. And that you're precise in your language, and that you're using the right form of the word. Like if you take the example of the word there could be possessive, or it could be a place that you're pointing to there. So you want to make sure that you are using the proper words. Watch your capitalization at the beginning of sentences. Proper nouns are capitalized. You want to watch your spelling. You can't always rely on spell check, although there is a spell check functionality. Remember that some words, even though they're properly spelled, may not be the proper word for the use in your document. So don't rely on spell check to catch everything. You'll want to reread that a couple of times before you submit your answer, just to make sure that you're using proper use of the words and you're spelling the words correctly. So when it comes to scoring on the BEC section, how do you earn a top score? So ways that you can earn a top score are understanding the context of the question. So, understand what is expected of you in your response. Take some time before you start just writing away to think through your message. What it is, what do you want to say? How do you want to say it? Structure your response in your head. Sometimes that helps. You do have that whiteboard, or that that board that you can jot down things. You may want to just jot down some things that you make sure that you want to include in your response so that you don't forget it. And then again, I can't emphasize enough, pay attention to your grammar and your spelling. All of these things together are going to help you get the top score. So we're going to dive into each one of these right now. So let's look at understanding the context. So when you're reading your question, one of the things you need to determine is who are you in the prompt. So what position are you taking as the writer of that communication? So formulate your response around that. And then determine who is it that you're writing to. So is the response asking you to formulate a document, for example, to an auditor, or are you a CPA writing to a client? Are you an auditor writing to a superior within your own firm? Are you an audit senior that's writing to a staff member? Perhaps you're an internal accountant writing to your superior, or you're that internal accountant that's writing to your staff. So put your place and think of two things. Who are you writing the response, and who are you writing to? Both of those things will help you in formulating your response appropriately. Avoid being too technical. So it goes back to who are you writing to. So if you're writing to somebody who is not an accountant, isn't in that profession, you want to make sure that you're not being too technical in your writing. You want to make sure that you're writing for the appropriate audience. That may mean that you need to define some things in your response. You need to clarify some of your statements so that they understand exactly what it is that you're trying to communicate if you were, for example, that auditor or that internal auditor. You'll want to keep your tone friendly, but not too friendly, but keep it professional. You are not jotting down a text message to your friend, or you're not doing a Twitter, or you're not posting in your social media. This is a professional environment that you're writing in, and so you want to make sure you keep the tone professional. But don't come across talking down to the person that you're speaking to. You can easily clarify and define your position without being condescending. So just watch how you do that. Think through your message. So this was one of the items I suggested that you do before you start writing. So take a deep breath. So you've read the response, you've read the question, you know what they're asking you to do. So now let's take a deep breath and let's brainstorm some points before you're responding. So here's where it comes in handy to jot down some of your ideas so that you don't lose them as you start pulling things together. Keep it simple, pick 2 or 3 points that you want to focus on, and then write to that. That will help you formulate your message good. This written communication question isn't necessarily about how much you write. It's really about how well you write what you do. So keep that in mind. When you structure your response, there are some things, and I alluded to this earlier, that you'll want to make sure that is contained in your response. You want to make sure you have an overview or thesis statement at the beginning. And sometimes this takes the form of just rephrasing the question. It lets the person know that you know what you're supposed to be talking about. United paragraphs. So each paragraph should have a topic sentence communicating what that paragraph is going to speak to, and then you should develop that paragraph explaining this main idea and then finish with a summary or a restatement of the topic sentence that kind of brings all of your ideas together. And then when you use transitions, make sure you're using them correctly. So words like currently, in fact, however, those are transition words, but you want to make sure that you are using them in its proper context. So make sure that you're doing that. It's best to have your response be 4 or 5 paragraphs at most. Again, like I mentioned, it's not about how much you write. You want to make sure that what you do write, you write well. You must have a thesis paragraph and a concluding paragraph to earn a top score. So always remember that. So you already know what your first paragraph needs to be. You know what your last paragraph needs to be. You develop 2 or 3 other paragraphs in between, and you should be good. Make an outline of your first sentence of each paragraph and then fill in the rest. So here is where you come to brainstorming. Maybe as you read that question and you formulate your response and you're jotting down your ideas, maybe you jot down in the form of an outline the things that you want to talk about in each paragraph, and then you can develop the paragraph. That should help you get your thoughts together. Your thesis or your introductory paragraph should not include your actual response. Remember, this is just the beginning of your response. You don't want to cram everything into that first paragraph. You want to show that you can develop your thoughts and you can formulate your response over multiple paragraphs. When you're structuring your response, you want to make sure that you stick to 1 point per supporting paragraph. If you need to change points, you need to change paragraphs. Use transitioning phrases such as first, second, lastly. In addition, in summary, those are all just some phrases that you can make use of. When you are creating your conclusion, your concluding paragraph, make it brief. Conclude it like you would in a professional document in your workspace. For example, if you are writing a letter to a client, most people conclude that letter by saying, "Thank you for your time," or "Thank you for your attention to this matter. Please feel free to contact me at." Again, you want to write this document as if you were sitting in your workspace and you were writing a letter to whoever it is that you're writing. So think of it that way. So put yourself, again, in the person who's writing the letter and close the document appropriately. So again, here is just some things to remember when you are structuring your response. Remember details, remember definitions, and remember examples. All of those 3 things help build your response and can help you score top points at the written communication question. Details are supporting what you're stating. Definitions help people who may not be in the same space understand what you're saying. Examples also help to clarify what you are trying to say. So don't hesitate to use those kinds of things in your response. Sentence structure is important in the written communication section of the BEC exam. So you want to look at your expression, and that includes, and I've already talked about this briefly, watching your grammar, punctuation, that you're using that appropriately, watch your word usage, capitalization, and your spelling. Again, don't rely on the spell check feature to catch all of your spelling errors. So let's talk a little bit more about sentence structure. So I know this may feel like it's going back to your English class. So let's talk about some different things that make up your sentence structure. One of the first things is your diction. This is the appropriate use of words, making sure that you're using the proper appropriate word choice. So find the best word possible to explain clearly and concisely what you're trying to say. Avoid, if necessary, if you are troubled with some words that you don't know what's the best one to use, and the example I share here is accept and accept. I struggle with that. I always am confused on whether I should be accepting things with an A or making an exception using the E. If those are troublesome words for you, try to find a different word that says the same thing if you think that's going to get you in trouble. Watch the syntax, which is the order of the words in a sentence. A lot of times syntax errors comes when you're hasty in your composition, when you're just, I know in my case, sometimes my mind goes faster than my mouth, and so sometimes I'll get things out of order, and sometimes that translates into my writing. So as you're writing, make sure you read and reread each sentence very carefully, making sure that the words are in the best possible order to get your idea across. And if you need to adjust them, adjust them. Watch your modifier placement. So this is speaking to, for example, your adverbs. Placing those modifiers improperly can be confusing, and sometimes, if you're not careful, it could change the meaning of your sentence. So again, watch how you order those words in the sentence and making sure that you're using the proper adjectives and adverbs appropriately in your sentence. Sentence fragments. So you don't want to have run-on sentences where your sentence goes on for more than several lines. You want to make sure that every sentence has a subject and a predicate. So again, just making good use of your English language. Watch your punctuation. The 2 most common areas involving periods occur when incorporating quotation marks and or parentheses with periods. So knowing when to put the period before the quotation marks or after, or before the parentheses or after. So you may want to brush up on your punctuation. And then again, and you'll see some things recurring through this presentation. Again, I'm going to talk about spelling. Don't rely on your spell checkers, because a lot of times the word is spelled correctly, but it's not the proper use of the word in your sentence. So you can score valuable points by just making sure of these simple things. So I put into this presentation some potential written communication topics that you're going to probably see on the BEC section. So here are some, so one thing to keep in mind with regard to BEC and the written communication questions is a lot of times the topics that you're going to be asked to talk about could actually go back to some of the other exam sections. So it may be a FAR topic. It may be a reg topic. That's why a lot of times in our advice to candidates, we suggest that BEC be one of the last sections they test, just because you will be able to draw on your knowledge from those other exam sections. So I've listed out some potential topics that you probably will see written communication questions on. One of them is perpetual versus periodic methods for accounting for inventory. So in this example, you want to make sure you understand the difference between perpetual and periodic. And so I've just given you some examples here. So unless you understand those and have those in your mind as you develop and formulate your response, if you're confused on those two terms, your whole response could be askew. So make sure you understand what you're talking about when you start formulating your topic. You may be asked to speak on the percentage of receivables versus the direct write-off method. So again, you need to understand what the difference is between those two things so that you can write appropriately. Again, I gave you some examples here on things that you should recall when you're formulating your response on this particular topic area. Another one is you may be asked to write on considerations when using forward contracts. Well, contracts are predominantly written in the reg section under the B law section. So here's an example that it's drawing on knowledge that you probably had in another exam section. So you need to understand, and when you read this one, you would need to know what is a forward contract. A forward contract is a contract between two parties to buy or sell an asset at a specified future time at a price agreed upon today. So you need to make sure you understand the terms in order to formulate a correct response. And I've just given you some other underlying ideas in helping you formulate your response if faced with a question like this. You could be asked to write a letter to Congress on the effectiveness of SOX. So to do that, you probably need to understand the benefits of SOX, know how to strengthen internal controls, improve record keeping, strengthen corporate governance structures, etc. So these are all things that you could draw on in developing the response in this letter to Congress. Again, just another idea, an example of what you may be asked to write about. Here's some other topics that you may need to refresh on. So you may be asked about the elasticity of price and demand, the ERM risk appetite and risk strategy is a topic. You may be asked to talk about cash versus accrual method of accounting, FIFO versus LIFO. Some of this, again, goes back to your FAR knowledge. How to treat interest on debt related to constructed assets. So these are some common topics that we have seen on prior exams. So this kind of gives you an idea as you're studying for the BEC section and specifically on the written communication questions. In your review courses, you should see questions on these similarly typed topics. Okay, so we're going to move into an interactive part of this presentation, and I'm going to ask that you use your question box to interact with me, okay? So we're going to do a quick quiz. It's not graded, so don't hesitate. If you answer wrong, I'm not keeping score, but I'm going to sort of see how well you understand how to use words in your communication, okay? So here we go. So here is your first question on this diagnostic English quiz that I created. So here's the question, and you're asked to choose the best choice. So the question is, or the statement is, the company can assert any defenses against third-party beneficiaries that they have against the promisee or it has against the promisee. So in your question box, let me know what you think it should be. Should it be they have or it has? So take a minute, submit your response, and then I will show you the answer. If you lost the audio, somebody lost the audio, try hanging up and dial back in. Oh, good deal. Okay, looks like, is there anybody else that wants to submit a response? I have several, but it looks like I have a few more that may. Awesome. You guys are all guessing correctly. So the answer to this one is it has. So it goes back to who is it talking about, the pronoun. The company isn't it, it's not a person. So it has against the promisee is the correct answer. All right, you guys did good on that one. Let's try the second one. Here's another one, so choose the best choice. Under the cost method, treasury stock is presented on the balance sheet as an unallocated reduction of total. Stockholders with the apostrophe at the end of the word, stockholders with no apostrophe, and I apologize for that break there, or stockholders apostrophe F equity. Which one is the best choice in formulating this response? And this kind of all goes back to the proper word choice and spelling. All of these are spelled correctly, but which one is the proper word choice to use? And I have several responses, several of them different. This will be interesting. Okay, and I think I have them all in. Good job, everyone. Okay, here is the answer. Stockholders, so stockholders are a group of people, and the apostrophe goes at the end of that. It's possessive to the group of stockholders, not to an individual stockholder. The stockholders without the apostrophe is not possessive at all. It's just a plural of the people. So you should have chosen with the apostrophe at the end. And several of you did that. Good job. Okay, we're going to do another one. Here's another one. Choose the best choice. A common format of bank reconciliation statements is or are to reconcile both book and bank balances to a common amount known as the true balance. So should you use is or should you use are? You guys are good. You guys shouldn't have any problem with the BEC section. Any more responses? Thank you for. Correct answer is. So watch your verb agreements here. So you might want to think that you should be using are because statements is plural, but it's a bank reconciliation statement, single. So you want to use the word is. Okay, so that's the last of my quiz. You guys did an awesome job on those questions. I totally appreciate that. So as I promised earlier, here are some examples of some resources. If you can't get your hands on maybe your prior English book or your business English class textbook, these are some books that you can get from Amazon. Some of them you may even be able to download for free. They may be available into your library. Elements of Style by Strunk and White and the Business Writing Handbook. It's a pretty basic business writing book that it doesn't hurt to refresh your mind. You know, the BEC, one thing about the BEC section, because the content is kind of all over the map, you've got multiple choice questions, should be fairly easy for you to answer, especially if you're pretty good on your content and you've done some really good in your review. The task-based simulation questions are probably going to be the more difficult ones because they've never been in BEC before. but you should get some easy points on the written communication questions as long as you understand how to write well. So I'll leave that up there so you can jot those down. I'm going to go back. Again, if you have questions, feel free to submit those in the webinar toolbox there. There are several that came in. At this point, I'm going to go back and I'm going to start answering these questions. And we've got a few minutes, and I'll answer as many questions for as long as they keep coming in. So we have a few minutes. So one of the first questions that came in today, and I told the person I was going to answer it broadly so everybody could hear the response to this, because I'm sure a lot of you deal with this. And the question was, when you absolutely go blank, what do you recommend to help you get going? Well, I know for myself, just watching my breathing, taking a deep breath, and then just kind of slowing my breathing down. You may want to count. You may just kind of like take a step away. I mean, it's not good that you step away from your testing booth, obviously, but I would go back and reread the question. So if you can't get your mind going with regard to the question, let's say I'm hoping that question pertains to you're reading this question, you're asked to formulate a response, and you can't, you have no idea where you can start. That's where I suggest you just start jotting down things that you can think of related to the topic. It could be that as you jot things down, all of a sudden, things will start coming to you. The other thing I would suggest to you, because a lot of time these written communication questions may give you a lot of detail, and then what they ask you to do is in that very last sentence. And that kind of happens in simulation questions. It even happens in some longer multiple choice questions. And what I always suggest to candidates to do is when you first see the question, rather than reading all the detail leading up to the question itself, read the question itself. What is it that they're asking you to do? That way you're already formulating your mind around the question, so that when you go back and read all of the detail leading up to the question, you'll be able to decipher what you need to pull out of all that detail in order to formulate your response appropriately. That may help as well. So the one thing about these written communication questions is that there's 3 of them. As I said, one is a pretest, and they're all in the same testlet. If you get to the first written communication question and you can't get your head around what they're asking, go to the second one. Or take a minute and scan all 3 of those written communication questions and start with the one that comes to you most easily. And then go and do the other 2. Even though one is pre-tested, I'm never going to suggest that you leave one of them blank. You need to answer all 3 of them. You may find that the one that's giving you the most difficulty is actually the one that's being pre-tested. So you never know. Your struggle could be for nothing, but that's how I would do that. Next question, I think it relates to what I just said. What if you don't know anything about the prompt provided? In a previous exam, I've maintained introduction, body, and conclusion and rewrote the prompt in a different way, and I got weaker in the written communication question. Again, if you don't have any clue about the prompt, while with the new exam, we've been told that there's more emphasis on the grammar usage and how well you write versus being on topic. I would suggest to you that if you can, and this is going to sound funny, if you can BS your way through the topic but write it well, you're still going to get points. But I would try and incorporate something of value in your statement in order to show that you are supporting what you're talking about. And then I got asked if the slides are going to be available. Yes, I will be happy to make my slides available to you guys so you can refer back to them. Okay, next question. When crafting your response, is there a reason you can't essentially outline the paragraphs, then begin filling in and revising? I absolutely recommend you do that. Is there some reason this will not be effective or with the software that it would not work? No, I would absolutely do that. And you can do it in writing in the space provided you within the question. Just remember to go back in and fill in responses. Or you can jot it down in outline form on your dry erase board that they give you in the testing center. Either way, I would definitely outline your response and then go back in and develop your ideas. Most definitely, that's a good plan of attack. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions. So if you have any more, feel free to. Oh, I do have some more. Okay. What if you're clueless about all 3 prompts? I think I talked to that already. And thanks for the feedback. Somebody, Liz Kohler is one of our authors of our course. She is an academic professor. She teaches accounting. She's been in the CPA review space for a very long time, and and she talks about triaging the simulation testlets, and it helps. And I kind of alluded to that a moment ago, that if you pull up the testlet, and like I said, it's a good thing, all 3 written communication questions are in the same testlet. So when you open up that testlet, look at the first written communication question, look at the second one, look at the third one, and then figure out which one you know the best and answer that one. And then go to your next easiest, and then leave the hardest one for last. And like I said, it could be that the hardest one is actually the pretest one, but you never know. So just be careful. Just make sure you don't leave any of those questions blank. So somebody asked if I suggested taking the BEC exam last of all 4. Yes, I would. If you have not tested yet, or even if you're in the middle of testing and haven't tested BEC yet, I would definitely, now that the new exam is launched, there's no urgency to get BEC out of the way. But yeah, BEC was one of the sections that changed the most with the new exam come April. If you've got the freedom to save BEC for the end, most definitely I say save it to the end. And again, that goes back to, because a lot of times these written communication questions could actually be drawing on your knowledge in FAR or Reg or Audit even. A lot of times these responses, you need to take the stance of an auditor. So you really need to understand auditing and be able to develop that idea well. So if you have that luxury and you have the freedom to move your sections around and you haven't tested yet, most definitely save BEC for last. I would most definitely do that. Okay. Okay, so if you have any more, I'm going to show you one more slide, and then I will answer any last questions that come in. So one of the things I wanted to share with you, if you're not already a customer of ours, one, thank you for attending this session, but for those of you that aren't customers of ours, we are excited to give you a discount off your full course enrollment. And this is good for new enrollments only. Enter webinar 500 at checkout. Again, it's only for the full course. No payment plan, so that would bring your price down to $12.99. So we encourage you to take advantage of that. We also have discounts if you had used a previous review course and either it timed out or you weren't successful or you had to step away and now you go back into it and it's just it hasn't been updated or whatever the case may be. We do have discounts that you can check on our surgencpreview.com website that talks about some huge discounts that you can get if you've previously purchased another review course, whether it's for the full course or even a single section. So check on that. One of the things about the Surgent CPA review course is our course doesn't expire, so that's good news. We update free of charge, so you don't have to worry about whether or not you're passing or studying with the most current exam information. So we update our course regularly. Our course uses an adaptive learning technology, and what that means is that our course continually adapts to your study plan. And so what it does is it takes and looks at your progress as you work through the course. And as you create study sessions, the software is going to randomly pull questions from your trouble areas versus the areas that you seem to have mastery on. And what we're finding when using that method, we're actually helping you save some study time. So I hope that helps you. Other review courses have a very linear approach to their studying, and what that means is that you're required to study every bit of material in the course. You read all the questions, read all the book, watch all the videos, and that could really eat up a lot of your study time. We don't necessarily think that that's the best way to study. We want you to study those portions of the material where it's giving you the most difficulty and those topic areas that are most heavily weighted on the exam. And by doing that, we can help you save some study time. So I hope that helps in choosing your review course. So I do have a couple more questions that came in. What if you got a 63 on BEC before the changes? What do you recommend? So the good thing with BEC, even with the exam changes, that most of the content is the same content. They did remove a couple of topic areas. I think like project management is no longer there, which could be good news for you. Maybe that's what helps you lower your score. And the written communication questions really they're the same like they were. They haven't really changed how the written communication questions are done. What's changed is those task-based sims. So what I would suggest is that you start your review on the BEC section, making sure that you're understanding the concepts and practice the task-based sims before you go retake, because you wouldn't have had them before. You want to make sure that you understand the types of questions that you're going to see and be able to score good, because those task-based sims are a good percentage of your score, and so you want to make sure that you can work those. The good thing is, for some of you, simulation questions are good for you. You can answer and think of, be able to answer those questions in a simulation or a case study better than you can do multiple choice questions. So for some people, simulation questions are good news. So hopefully that is the case. A general question on the review course: since we're now in the new testing program, will they change the program to where the option to switch back to the 2016 outline goes away? Actually, Carla, it went away this morning. We actually removed that. We had to keep it in there because we had some accounting professors that were using our materials in their accounting classes, and until we were confident that all the semesters had ended, we had to give them that ability to get back. But now you'll see it gone. So now on the dashboard, you'll have 3 different Surge cards up there for your daily study activities. So that should help. So you can ignore that card. So good deal. So I will reach out to all of you with a copy of this presentation in a PDF form, so it's not too large, coming through email. You'll also then have my contact information. If you, let me put up this last slide. You can jot this down as well. Follow me on Facebook, on Twitter, LinkedIn. We have a Twitter account for Surgent, a Facebook account for Surgent. We're posting things not necessarily related to our CPA review course, although we do that. We're blogging. We are sharing tidbits just with regard to the exam, general recruiting tips, networking tips. All those things are frequently shared in both of those spaces, and I do the same in LinkedIn, either as a company or myself personally. You can follow me in LinkedIn. I'm happy to accept your connection. So thank you again for your time, and I hope to see all of you studying for the exam and being successful. So good day, everyone, and I will talk to you later. All right, bye-bye.